Good evening, beautiful people. Thank you for tuning in to another segment of Off the Record but on My Mind. Today's conversation is an important one. I'm joined by a special guest who happens to be a black police officer of over 10 years of service whose name and identity will remain anonymous for obvious reasons. We're here to talk honestly about the space he occupies between the badge and the community, between the duty and identity. This episode matters because there is a real gap between how law enforcement is perceived and what officers, especially black officers, actually experience. And the question at the center of the discussion will always be, can you truly serve and protect a community that doesn't always trust you? We'll talk about why he joined the force, the misconceptions surrounding police officers, the frustration within the work, and why so many police officers do not patrol in the neighborhoods in which they live in. And we'll dig into what it means to be black in blue, the responsibilities, the criticisms, the pressures, and the purpose. Ultimately, this is a conversation about trust, identity, and the possibility of rebuilding what has been broken. So let's get into it. So, for those of you that are tuning in, I've been waiting for quite a few weeks to be able to sit down with this brother. We've spoken offline. I had the privilege and the honor of meeting him through a mutual friend that we both love and respect. This gentleman has opened his home and allowed me to come in and meet his family. His extended family moms came down and we had a big celebration. And every time I've been in this brother's company, it's been nothing but positive vibes. He has a beautiful family, a new father, and everything in his life, from my vantage point, seems to be falling into place. And so I couldn't wait to sit down with him, one, just to kind of, expand out our interactions together, but for him to help me to share with you all, the viewers, some of these things that I just been kicking around in my head, just being an observer of what's been going on, not only in the black community, but just in the United States over the last 10 years, and how law enforcement officers have pretty much been polarized and in many instances have been villainized by the general public. And growing up in the black community myself, I'll take a little bit of time to kind of like share some of the biases or some of the lenses that I was forced to see uh, inner city policing through. But I want to put someone in front of you that can actually tell you from over a decade's worth of experience what it's like to be in a uniform, what the expectations are, what some of the pitfalls are, and then ultimately, for anyone that knows me, it's important to raise and elevate Black consciousness and Black voices. And so I want this gentleman to actually share his story from his perspective, and hopefully we'll all be able to gain something from it. So, without no further ado, I want to jump into the questions, just so that we can honor your time. And I just want to invite you to just, feel comfortable in this space. We've taken the necessary precautions. So hopefully you feel comfortable sitting across from me and, just talking and sharing your story, your authentic story. And I know that anyone that views this has a good shot at gaining a better understanding of what it feels like to be a police officer, but more importantly, what it feels like to be a black police officer. So you ready, my man?
Yes, I am. It's an honor and privilege. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. All right. So, we got to start at these first little seeds that had been planted in you. So, right off top, what is it that motivated you to become a police officer?
Well, uh, for myself, I grew up in, for lack of better words, the hood. Well, I guess you consider it the hood where I lived at, because it's predominantly black neighborhood, and there were no good influences. I grew up in watching gangs, shootings, people always hanging out the park, selling drugs, fighting, drinking. And, I decided I wanted to be a better influence for individuals when I grew up, actually. So, actually, first, I didn't go right into law enforcement. I served in the military for 10 and a half years. Then I went to school, and then I finished the reserves. And while I was doing the reserves, I joined to be a police officer during that time. So I finished 10 years in the military, and I'm almost at 10 years at in law enforcement. So yeah.
Okay. So let's peel that back a little bit. So going back to your upbringing, um, what was your perspective, if any, or what was your take on police officers or your experiences as a youth, if any?
So I had none because I was never in trouble. I didn't do bad things. I didn't hang around the wrong crowd. So I never really had any experiences with police officers. But some of the ones that I did is because I was like curfew, when I was a teenager, staying out past curfew. And we thought it was cool to run from the cops when they would try to stop us because, obviously they're out there doing their job. We're teenagers out past 10:30 at night. We should not be out that late because nothing good happens at that time. So obviously, was I really going to get in trouble? No, they were just going to take us home. So, I ran from cops. That's about it.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. And so, as you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, you decided to raise your right hand and serve and protect the country that we all have come to grow and love in, and you spent over 10 years in the military. When you made the decision that you wanted to join law enforcement and become a police officer, what was the response or what was the sentiments of your family, loved ones, close friends when you made that decision and decided you're going to tell people this is going to be my pivot out of the military to my next career field?
Well, it came as almost a surprise because I was, in school. I was 30 years old at the time. Um, and I was like, you know what? I'm really not into school, so I'm just going to be a police officer. I wanted to do it a while ago, but I was in the military, so I just applied. My family really didn't give me any slack because they know, I have a good head on my shoulders, and I'm always willing to help people. And serving in the military to me, it didn't seem like any difference, but it's a huge difference. And to also caveat on back what we were talking about earlier about stories or interaction with a police officer, I actually forgot. I actually had a very, very good interaction with another black police officer. So there I am, 13 years old, hanging out with kids that are older than me, like 15, 16. And, I don't have any brothers, and they were knuckleheads. So, we're all hanging out, and they're like, hey, if you want to hang with us, you got to steal these cupcakes. So, what I do, I stole the cupcakes and I ran. Um, the guy the guy chased after us. Obviously, you're not catching a teenager if you're, I mean, it's not happening unless you're slow and out of shape. So, we're running. We thought we were scot free. And all of a sudden, a black police officer pulls up to us in a regular car in plain clothes. And he's like, hey, you want to talk about it? And we're like, talk about what? They was like, I just heard over the radio. You guys fit the description. And actually, you stole something, all you guys together. So get in the car. And I'm like, okay. So we all get in the car, and they all start like hitting me in the head. They're like, man, you an idiot, you a dummy. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, y'all told me to do it. Like, you know what I mean? Right. So actually it became a very informative and educational moment. So he took us to a crime scene, and it was some gang members that just got shot. And he was like, hey, look, I don't want y'all to get in trouble. Not saying y'all gonna go down this route, but this is where it starts at stealing. He was like, "Hey, if these older ones are bad influences on you, maybe you shouldn't be hanging out with them." He was like, "You guys can go to juvenile hall for this, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna take you home, and not tell your parents. But if you really want the cupcakes, I'll buy them for you." And we're like, "No, I don't. We don't want them. I just did it." So after that, it was eye opening. I actually the other three people I was hanging with, they all ended up in jail at one time or another, and in and out of jail the whole time. Out of all four of us, I was the only one that that kept a straight head and did get in trouble. And I actually looked for him when I joined law enforcement. but I couldn't find him. I don't know if he retired around the time or like I kept describing him. I didn't even know his name. So if I would have found him, that would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, man. So what it sounds like is that out of the four of you, you're the only one that actually saw the purpose in what he was trying to get you guys to understand about making decisions and how, not really thinking through things can lead you to a place you really can't come back from.
Right.
And so that's also a testament
So,
of your, go ahead.
and I was saying it was just something just as small as spilling cupcakes.
Yeah. But I mean, even something as simple as that, man, it still is already starting to show a little bit of how you seen the world around you, because there's hundreds of thousands of young boys, throughout time that have, did minor things to that extent and had an opportunity to either be scared straight or to have someone pull their coattails and be like, hey, you know what? You might think that what you're doing is minor now, but it starts you down a path towards destruction. And a lot of these young boys and young black boys in particular, they don't heed or comprehend exactly what kind of lifeline is being thrown. So, not to at all insinuate that you haven't made any mistakes in your life, but look at you being able to reflect on that. And so much so that it impacted you even without you recognizing that when you became a law enforcement officer yourself, you thought it necessary to try to seek him out, and I imagine if you would have saw him, you would have actually, thanked him and shared with him how that moment right there was real pivotal for you, right?
Right. Correct.
Yeah. Cool. That's a great story to share. Thank you for that. All right, so why I want to sit down with you is because depending on who you talk to, there's people that are, that love and have a great reverence and appreciation for law enforcement officers, or they have a great disdain and maybe a bone to pick and a lot of distrust. And it's just been my experience over the last 15, 20 years, there's not really a lot of in between. It's just you just migrate to the one side or the other based on your experiences or the experiences of other. And so I wanted to make sure that we take this opportunity to be able to see policing through the eyes of someone that takes a great deal of pride in putting on a uniform and going out to do a great service for the community every single day. Because I do know that much about you. You know what I'm saying? We've sat in our each other's company a couple times, and it doesn't take long to understand your vibe and your frequency. And right. So, what I wanted to ask you just to kick this thing off is, what do you think that people get wrong about police officers, especially black police officers? What do you think they walk into a scenario already with a misunderstanding about?
So obviously it just depends on how you grew up or like the area you patrol. Policing across the country is going to look different from county to county. Where I police at, I chose to go back to my hometown and patrol actually where I grew up at. There's pros and cons with that. Now, the pros is that people know me there, so therefore I can go handle a situation and it could be a very serious one, but when they see me, they will get some reassurance knowing the type of person that I am, that I'm not going to come in there and just be, hiding behind the badge, because I talk to individuals and I address the issues and I don't take advantage of the the let's see, the power, or have a power trip. So with that being said, I have been in situations to where people were like, "Oh, you pulled me over because I'm black." Like, no, I pulled you over because you have tinted windows, and I can't tell who you are. I can't tell what you were, what ethnicity you were. I couldn't tell you male or female. I just seen tinted windows and I pulled you over. Um, but not to say there aren't bad apples in every job, but being a black officer is way harder to me than being a white officer, because the white officers look at us a different way. And I feel like black officers have to work more and have to have more accolades to move up or to even be hired. And even in the public, when they see you, they treat you different. And that goes on what neighborhoods you're in, because there are some rich neighborhoods where I've patrolled and I've gotten complaints, so many complaints, just because I was black. They're not going to say it, but it will be like it will be a complaint that I didn't even really show up to the call. Like I didn't do anything. I showed up and they're like, I want to complain on him. Why? What did he do? Oh, he was rude. He was disrespectful. And, the camera saved me a bunch of times. They'll watch the camera footage and be like, he did nothing. So what are you talking about? Oh, okay. Well, I didn't like his tone. Oh, okay. All right. Have a good day. So it's hard being a black officer. It's hard. And it just depends on where you police at. Because if you go police in the hood, like everybody's going to look at you like I came to scenes where there's a black guy, gang member on the ground in handcuffs. And, he's fighting with people. And then he sees me. He thinks I'm going to save him. But I'm just like, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. So as soon as he see me, he's like, for lack of better words, he's like, nigga, help me. And I'm like, whoa. And I tell people right off the bat, don't address me as that. That's a title I've never earned. That's not me. I think it's very ignorant to even use that word. So I correct people when they say that to me, because that's not who I am. That's not a term of endearment to me. It's straight ignorance to me. I think it's 100% ignorant.
Well, listen, man, you preaching to the choir. I gained knowledge of self and take that word out of my vocabulary almost 20 years ago, at least a good 15 years ago. And it's hard to navigate sometimes around people that are still trapped in this facade that this word can be reimagined and reconstructed and turned into, like you said, a term of endearment, but it still has so many contradictions. And when it's used with us again, saying it to each other, they act like it doesn't have a negative connotation based on how they feel about us. You know what I mean? And so I can imagine that. Um, so hearing what you're saying, my first thought is this, and it's just from your experience. We know that we're looking at it through your lens. So I'm not asking you to speak for all cops or all black cops, but just for the sake of the dialogue, would you say that there was more of an expectation or already a typecast placed on you coming to service or to intervene with someone who is black or with someone who is white? Do you feel like there's more barriers or more misconceptions you have to break down just arriving on the scene?
Yes. So, um, from my experiences that I've had experiences where I'll show up to a scene where there are black people there and things will be going a certain way, and the other cops, the white cops, would be like, "Oh, I thought you had it." I was like, "Why do you think I had it?" "Oh, because those are your people." Like, what do you mean? Like, we're doing a job here. We're providing a service. Like, you're supposed to be working with me to do this job. There's no black or white thing here. Like, why does my ethnicity has to come up in this? Like, I thought I was a police officer. Like, I know I'm human, but I'm doing a job. Like, it shouldn't be like that. So, but unfortunately, it is. I've been to scenes where white people will be like, "Hey, I am very openly racist. Do not talk to me." Got it.
So it sounds just like I had suspected, and what you had alluded to in our introduction piece is that it being a police officer carries with it a certain set of assumptions or a certain perception, public perception. But then it sounds to me like there's also that intersection of layers of what it means to be a black police officer. So my question to you is, How much do you think public perception influences how people see police officers, namely black cops?
I mean, nowadays with social media and everybody having cameras, like it's huge. But it just depends on the type of person that you are. Like where I work at, there's not many black cops, and the black cops that are there, you have some cops who want to be on the other side, who want to be white. I'm gonna just call a spade a spade. They want to be white and be treated like them. So they do things to fit in. So for the other ones who just we stick to ourselves and just do the job, we're not trying to fit in with the other people. We're just there to do a job. And other people are there to be buddy buddy and go out drinking and partying all the time. It's 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 a good old boy club. But to clarify your question, it's like I can't really put a percentage on it because everywhere is not the same, and it's a small. I would say it's a small percentage. It's a small percentage.
Okay. Okay. So let's just kind of like hover over some of the common frustrations that a black police officer could, feel working, protecting and serving the community. What are some of the day-to-day challenges that people don't see or don't take into consideration about being a police officer?
So off the bat, like people need to understand police officer. What is the job of a police officer? I don't think people really understand. And police officers deal with the worst in everyone, the worst in everyone. I have never arrived, no one has ever called 911 and said, hey, Brandon got an A on his test today and he likes police officers. He wants to be a cop. Would you come and celebrate with us, have some pizza or have some lunch with us? No, those are not the calls that we get. It's my 3-year-old son's not breathing. My son just got shot. My mom's not breathing. I found my daughter found her dad hanging in the closet. Somebody overdosed. It's somebody flew through a windshield, or like sometimes you don't even believe these calls. A car flew into a tree and now it's split in half, and it's like no way. Oh yes way. Like we deal with the worst in everyone, and people forget that we're human. But we have to put on that uniform, go do all of that, and then every now and then you run into somebody, a very small percentage, who you'll pull over somebody for something minor, and they just start giving you lip, and you pulled me over because of this, you pulled me over because of that. And it's like if you just sit there and listen, let me tell you what's going on. I will tell you why I pulled you over. Don't jump to assumptions, because our day-to-day operations, they can change. They can be at very high tempo. I've been to calls to where I went to a double homicide, gang violence. Watch somebody, their family members all there at the park. One person walked up to two people, shot them both in the face, and the families watched it, but no one wants to be a snitch. But I show up there slipping and sliding, and people's blood, trying to save them, and they're yelling at me to do something, but I'm not a doctor. Like, what what can I do? But okay, tell me what happened. Nah, we ain't talking to you. Wow. It's hard being a cop. You deal with the worst in everyone. Everyone. Like they talk about military having PTSD. What do you think the violence and everything that police officers see? Police officers have way more PTSD than military. Way more. Like every day is a deployment to a police officer. Every day. Like the amount of death calls we go to. Like in the military, you go deploy, not everybody sees combat. Not everybody shoots their weapon. It's it's crazy the amount of violence and stuff that we see. But we're still expected to be professional every day, be the bigger man or woman in every situation, and not have an attitude, not yell, and keep a smile on our face.
Yeah, that's one of the unfortunate expectations of anyone that's in civil service, whether it's police, fire, whether it's EMT teachers, like there's this expectation of flawlessness and even regurgitated out of the mouths of the people that we serve that, well, you decided that this is what you wanted to do for a living. You made that choice, so you should have to deal with whatever comes along with the job. And so I can share in your, in a small capacity with your frustration because I don't have um any of those miles clocked under those experiences that you're talking about out in the field. But you mentioned something that I think is very, very critical and very, very pertinent to this conversation, especially since we're talking about policing and the expectations or the thought processes of Black police officers. You made mention of showing up at different scenes, crime scenes, and there are people out because that's the American culture. Everyone's out looking, everyone's nosy, everyone wants to know what's going on. And even in this day and age, everyone's pulling out cell phones and trying to find ways to get content for stuff that otherwise should not be capitalized in that way. But do you come across, you said you come across people that are uncooperative, or people that or you have a sense or understanding that they have something to bring forward, but we live in this society, especially in the Black community, where there's a no snitch culture, right? And I'm sure you face that probably more often than not. So let's talk about the whole snitch culture for a second. You say you show up and your job is to figure out what happened and to render service and to be of service and then try to figure out how to mitigate circumstances. Talk to us a little bit about the frustrations of people not wanting to be helpful and good citizens and good neighbors to each other, just based on this notion that if you ever say anything or talk to the cops, you're like a snitch, and all the things that are implied in our Black culture around that. How has that impacted your ability to do your job?
I mean, it makes it very difficult because everybody they live by the hood rules. We don't snitch. What do you what do you mean you don't snitch? How can you watch your loved one be shot in the face and you say nothing about it? You say nothing about it. Like, we have to be better than that. We have to be better than that. Like, if someone does something wrong, speak up, say something. And like everyone should do that. That should be, and it's not like it's not something minor. It's something huge. And I get it. A lot of people are scared for, retaliation, especially with gang violence. They're like, oh, okay, well, you snitched, then I'm gonna go get somebody in your family. Like, that sucks. I would hate for anyone to be in that position. And I understand where they're coming from. But I mean, don't choose that lifestyle. Don't choose that lifestyle. But if you're just a regular day person and you're not in gang violence or doing anything wrong, if something happens and you watch it, speak up on it. You should definitely speak up on it because everyone's so quick to bring out their cell phones and there are cameras everywhere around here. We know somebody's seen it. So speak up about it. Like people that go missing, people that got hit and runs and no one says anything. say something. Because what if that was your loved one? You would want somebody to say something if that was your loved one or if that was you.
Yeah. So this is a perfect opportunity to pivot to, one of the things that is a sentiment that some people share, and when you and I were busy talking offline prior to coming on to the program, we talked about the other side of that coin, right? And this is something that, regular petty street criminals on up to, professional, middle class workers or upper class workers looking at maybe not police officers in the community, but certainly looking at all of these little shows that are streamed and these movies that are streamed that show something that is been coined as the blue wall of silence. And for someone that says police officers want us to put our life on the line or our reputation or our loved ones' safety on the line to be able to come forward, to be able to solve a case so that someone receives justice and someone is able to be taken off the streets if they've done, a certain type of crime. What do you say about those that point out that there are instances that have played out in public and in private where cops see things going wrong? They jump out of the patrol car and they see that another officer is in the wrong. But prior to having to have on these the cameras that you all now, most police departments have now, you see cops protecting other cops' misconduct or bad conduct. I think what would you say to someone that says, how is it that you can encourage us as law enforcement officers to be able to step up and do what's right and to speak up, but there's still a absolute false reality within police departments, and there's been stories and instances where cops didn't speak up and didn't do the right thing and chose to turn the other cheek or to just totally remove themselves from any culpability for a cop doing something wrong. How do you balance that argument?
Well, it's that is a tough one. That is a tough one right there because I can tell you right now, I'm pretty sure a lot of police departments, you know, have that in their code of conduct or their rules and regulations that if you see something, say something, and you have to intervene if something is going on. But do they really mean it? No, they don't mean it because as soon as you do, you get blackballed. And what I mean by that, like officers will turn their back on you. And, before the body worn cameras, cops did whatever they wanted to do, right? And that was way before cell phones, this cell phone cameras, smartphones. So officers did whatever they wanted. So those officers who have been on for so long, those are the ones who are in charge now. So therefore, when they see people intervening or trying to get other cops in trouble, they're getting put on the shit list, for lack of better words. And meaning they're not going to move up. They're getting bad recommendations, because it's a good old boy club. They only want the people in who are like minded. If you go against the grain, law enforcement is not for you because you're never going to get anywhere. You're never, especially not in a position of leadership. It's frowned upon. It's frowned upon. And these leaders, they give these political answers. They will never give you a black and white answer. Everything's always danced around. They never give you a correct answer because, they have to protect the integrity of the organization, which is horrible. Which is horrible. So, and the culture in law enforcement will never change because it's like that. It's like that everywhere. It's no different. There are no police departments that don't operate like that. I can't actually speak for other ones, but I'm pretty sure it's like that. Pretty sure it's like that because it's very political to do anything in law enforcement, especially to move up. So if you say
Yeah.
something, you're going to get blackballed.
Wow. So so after hearing that, it just, it just occurs to me that there's competing interests in any instance where cops are called out to a scene because one, you're trying, for the sake of the argument, you're trying to gain an understanding of what is taking place. You're trying to figure out what the next logical step is, and then the goal is always to be able to make sure that those that have been victimized, get justice, and you guys are right there on the front line. And then, even as you're trying to do this good deed, you're dealing with, the court of public opinion and how they feel cops are. And then you, like in any job, there's bad apples in every job. So I think that when people point out that there are bad police officers and how the actual culture of policing is this and that, it just kind of saddens me to realize that there isn't a clear way to clean that up so that, all parties involved can actually just step up and do the right thing. It seems like it's one or the other. And the reason why I asked you that, not only because you were willing to share it, but, there's just been so many tales in black and brown communities before cell phones, before there was, cameras up on light poles and in certain areas, these tales of how cops had abused their power, and it was always dismissed as the criminal was always going to try to play the victim, and that, the ability to effectively police people was romanticized to where, cops are out there doing, the best thing they can. But now that we were able to see, with the advent of the smartphone and able to see with most police departments now having the body cam work, that people lose their cool. As you said, they're human, but there's errors that go on, not just with, people treating other people bad, but, with cops also doing that. So I can imagine, you're actually helping me to kind of substantiate some of the things I've kind of suspected. So again, thank you for, being candid enough to actually just, say, that those things still exist. Because there's some people that are convinced that those are all false narratives and those are just ways to try to shirk responsibility of the common criminal, to take accountability for their actions. And so I appreciate that.
Of course.
What I want to do, I want to segue to something that, is, for anyone that's watching this and that doesn't have a good, clear understanding of what the process and steps are. You made mention that you had elected to go work in and service the community in which you grew up in. My question to you is this, and it's twofold for you to kind of help us to see the process. Do all police officer candidates, coming out of the police academy get to choose their assignment? Or what does that process look like from when you say where you get accepted into the police academy and you go into the academy? How many weeks is it typically? What happens as soon as you graduate from it? And then how is your first assignment determined? Walk us through that.
So for us, it's a they you get chosen. So once you graduate the academy, you do your training, you put in like a wish list of where you want to go. And like I said, it's very political. So most people, when they go through training, you work different areas, so you get to see the different the different neighborhoods that you could have potential of working in. And if you like a certain one, you would go to the leadership while you're there training. You'll be like, "Hey, I'm such and such. Um, I want to come here when I'm done training. I would like to work this community. I like this command. And if the leadership likes you, or if you've done that or made your name noticeable, then they'll pick you. Or if not, then it'll just be the needs of the service areas. So they'll just be like, well, we need 3 people here. So first 3 go there. Next 2 go here. Next 1 go there. They'll just go that route. Um, I made it known where I wanted to go to the leadership at the command that I was training at. So, and I got chosen to go there.
Okay. So, I know that you all have to take, does it start with taking a civil service exam, or is there something else that's put in place to that before you even get chosen to go into the academy? For someone that's watching this that says, hey, my son or daughter or niece or nephew or someone that's, in high school has been saying that they have an interest in going into law enforcement, what would be the steps that you would give them from your experience as to how to try to make that dream happen?
Okay, so some places have like open testing, like you could just come in and take a test. Is basic reading, comprehension, um, a little bit of math, map reading, vocabulary, and so that's if it's open testing. If not, you actually have to reach out to the department that you want to apply for, and you fill out a questionnaire. You pretty much fill out an application, and they go through like the basic questions. Are you a felon? Have you ever been convicted of this? They'll ask certain questions to even eliminate you from that process. Because if you answer that you're a felon, or if you had a DUI, they will not allow you to even take the test if it's within, you know, a certain time frame. Um, so, and then after that, then they give you, if you get chosen to take the test, they'll give you an appointment date to go take the test, and then you just go from there.
Okay. Cool. That's good to know because in the line of work that I'm in, we're always encouraging young people to venture out and to try new things and to try something that they're passionate with. And of course, as an educator, we promote college, readiness, but more and more as the years are going by, we've been kind of shifting that approach to now talking about career readiness and trying to help encourage and funnel students into, civil service jobs or into trade schools or into things because it's becoming a lot more apparent to us as educators that students are on average less apt to want to turn right around and go do more schooling if they've struggled through 12 years parochial schooling. And so I asked that because I've had a couple students that have made mention or at least shared a curiosity about policing, police work, and we have a peace officer at our school and things like that. But I just want the viewing audience to be able to take those things into consideration so they can pass that information along to anyone that might have some curious questions about that. So thank you for that perspective.
Of course. Now, coming from somebody who went to law enforcement first, I mean, to the military first, which helped out tremendously when it comes to maturity, leadership, life experience, and work experience. Um, I would say I feel that police officers shouldn't be hired until the age of at least 24. You should, because under the age of 24, like, what did you do? Like, going to college, does that look good? I mean, it looks good. Is it a requirement? No. But what did you do? You just studied. You just took a test. What life experience do you really have if you were a college student? Because when you become a police officer, you control whether somebody goes home to jail or if you take their life away or not. That's a huge responsibility. You're giving all these kids 20, well, the age to apply is 20 and a half because in California you can't own a handgun and unless you're 21. So the academy is 6 months. So then that means when you're done with the academy, you'll be 21. No freshly 21-year-old should be a police officer. What life experience do you have? You're going to walk into another person's house who's 50-year old, have a lot of life experience, and you're going to come in there and tell them what to do, and you're 22 years old, and you've done nothing with your life but go to college? No, no. Okay, you worked at Walmart for 6 months. Still not enough. What life experience do you have? They should make it harder to be a police officer. You should have more experience than just a college degree, because anyone can get a degree. That's not enough experience. That's not. You're still a child. Now you're not. I don't feel that you're mature enough, because I've watched people come, become a cop, and they get out of the academy, they start training, and they quit because they're like, "Oh, I didn't know it was going to be like this." What did you think it was going to be like? This job sucks. You deal with the worst in everyone. I tell people all the time, if they be like, "Oh, I want to be a cop because it's going to be fun," then you don't need to be a cop. It's fun if you're in a specialized unit and you get to do cool stuff. But starting off, driving to black and white, working holidays, rain, sleet, snow, out there, miserable, that's not fun. But yeah, sorry.
No, 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 no. Keep it coming, man. Listen, this is good because this is authentic, and this is the experience of, any and can be any police officer. And I think that every industry, if a person is in it long enough, can look at where the starting point should be and say, hey, you know what, we think that individuals should come already into this industry with this set of skills already established, because when they don't, the learning curve for some of them are so steep that it kind of like brings down the overall, value of whatever industry you're in. And you just made a point I never really thought about. I've never known what the age was in order to become a cop. I know that in some places there's no cutoff age for how old you are when you actually, you can't be too old, so to speak, only because I've had a couple of friends that have spent 20, years in the military and then decided that they wanted to go in law enforcement. And I kind of looked at them like, bruh, like you like 38, you like 40, and you want to you want to go and jump into policing. So I kind of know that, just talking to them or being here in California, becoming CHP officers or whatnot, I know the back side of it, but I never really thought to ask what the age was. Prior to you saying that, I just assumed that once you graduate from high school, you can apply for the academy,
Oh no.
or at least, yeah. So that's a relief. I mean, even though you're saying that there still should be a higher bar, at least it's a relief that a teenager can't be a cop.
Well, what's crazy is a teenager can go work in the jails. They can be 18, 19, apply to go work in jails, but you can't go patrol the street because you have to own a handgun. And that's only in California. Imagine other places, though.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, so I wanna kind of pivot a little bit, because we've been talking about a lot about, the fact that there's a lot of distrust in this particular field that you're in, when like I think that the romanticized way of looking at policing is like you said. I've heard people say, oh, I want to go become a police officer or whatever because of the thrill of it, or because I think it'd be fun, or I think it'd be cool, not really understanding what it is that you're going to be tasked with actually having to do on a day-to-day basis. And just knowing, as a person like you that grew up in the inner city, that grew up in the hood, understanding that in the black community especially, there is a certain level of a collective distrust from police officers. Some of it is well earned distrust, but some of it I'm convinced is just a disconnect. And so I wanted to kind of look at some things that I think are misconceptions that people have that cause that extra disconnect and that heightened level of distrust. So I want to give you a couple of scenarios that I think that are just common things that can happen with the average everyday person, not necessarily a criminal. And I want you to just kind of share with the audience what is their perspective, what are protocols, or what is a police officer on any average day? What is their mindset when they're making their way through their rounds as a patrolman or a patrolwoman? And so, you mentioned earlier about the tinted windows. So this thing has always kind of tripped me out, right? Because you go and you buy a car, and a lot of the time the windows are already tinted. And I understand that this is different from state to state. So let's just stay with California so I can get your expertise, and you might even be able to throw in some, some real cop language that kind of, lets people know what you guys are looking for. So you go buy a car, and most cars that have the back window, and if it's a four-door car, the two rear door windows tinted, and some level or some percentage of tint on the two side windows. My question to you is, in the state of California, is it a standard percentage that a car can have of tint that's legal, and anything past that is illegal, or does it vary from county to county or even from city to city?
Okay. So the tent, that was like one of my pet peeves, right? Because I don't want to pull over a car and end up in a dangerous situation and not see who I'm dealing with. Okay. So with that being said, I want you to rethink about what you proposed were saying that there are some tint on the front two windows. I have never seen a brand new car on the car lot with their front two windows tinted. They won't do it. It's all aftermarket because they know it's illegal. Front two windows and that windshield are the only ones that cannot be tinted. Any tint on there, any tint on there is a ticket. It's a ticket. Now, depending on your police department's policies, some of them maybe like, so there's this thing called a fix it ticket, right? You get a fix it ticket for tenant windows. You're supposed to write a fix it ticket for it. But some people won't, because let's say if they've been watching a car, or they know, they in their mind they probably think, hey, they have assumptions, hey, this person is up to no good. I'm never going to write them a fix it ticket because it's me, because I know I can keep pulling them over for that window tint. So they're going to keep doing it. Now, some policies say you shall write a fix it ticket. Some policies may not say that. But if it says you shall and you don't, you can get in trouble for that. But it just depends on who your supervisor or who your leader is, or whose attention is brought up to. Because you have certain cops. It depends on what type of cop you run into. You have a cop that's just doing their job and they're going home, right? That's it. You have the other ones who want to go out there and, I'm going to go make 3 arrests today. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go find some drugs. I'm going to go find a gun. I'm going to go do this. So they're literally out there searching for that stuff. They're literally out there searching for that stuff. And so they will pull over the car with the tinted windows to see who it is, to see what they're doing. They will do that. If you don't have tint on your windows, you can't be pulled over for tint. But that's what everybody does. They go get a car and they go tint their windows. That's why they're not tinted. That's why the front two windows aren't tinted. because it's not allowed on there.
See, and that's a great education for me because what I immediately realized when you said that is that, myself and probably most people are not in that tax bracket to go and buy a brand new car off the lot. So most of the time we're already buying previously owned vehicles. And so I just imagine that most of the time the actual dealership is not going to go through the trouble of taking the window, the tint off of the side windows. And so I just thought that, there's a certain, percentage that can be on these sides. I mean, I've always known that you shouldn't or you can't, tint the front window for safety purposes. But as you're explaining this, even for myself, I'm starting to look at it from a different angle because I'm thinking you guys always have to worry about safety. Someone that has tinted windows looks at it like this is a huge inconvenience. You ain't got no reason to pull me over. You just pulling me over because of my tinted windows, and that's a bunch of bullshit. But in your line of work, when you guys get out of the car, you have to assume that something could go bad in order to try to prepare for it and be able to respond to something like that. So you just explaining it the way you explained it just kind of got me to see, because I came from the other side where it's like, man, this is an annoying thing, man, to be pulled over because window tint. That sparks the whole animosity piece when the cop shows up and you roll your window down. You already feel like, why the hell are you pulling me over for some windows? Like, bro, really, this is what it's about? But not ever really thinking about what the dangers could be of someone operating a vehicle that's tinted. And if they decide they want to make a bad decision, like you all don't really have a lot of options to try to, um, get yourselves out of harm's way. So that this right here already has helped me to see things a little bit differently. But you mentioned something else, right? You're talking about how sometimes cops, and I'm just interpreting, I'm paraphrasing. You say sometimes cops already impose a certain quota or something on their daily assignment, and they're already working this area for a while, so they know what's moving and who's the movers and shakers, and so they're already coming up with their stat line for the day. What I asked you off the air that I wanted you to kind of touch bases on and kind of unpack is when a police officers in the cruiser and you're just rolling around, there hasn't been anything that's come across the radio for you to have to respond to. What is the training say you should be doing? Are you sitting there, looking at as many license plates as possible? Are you running random license plates through the computer? Are you, just head on the swivel looking for anything that the average person like me would not see out of place to kind of like be able to shed a little bit more attention on? What's the mindset of being in the cruiser moving around through the community you service?
Okay, so um, it like everything, like every police department has different policies and procedures, right? So a big thing is just the radio calls. And when I say that, it's when someone calls 911, a call gets formatted, and every police officer in their service area has a computer, and there's police calls that are holding, and they're numbered from a priority level from 0 to 4. 0 being that's extremely important, go there now. And then 1 being it's still important, go handle it. And then it gets lesser and lesser. And 4 is probably like, oh, it's just going to be a report. So that report can hold. Like it's nothing active, it's something old. Somebody stole my bike. Okay, it's not happening, but somebody stole the bike. Okay, I got it. I'm gonna come there and take paper, but I have to handle these other calls first. So now back to like the day-to-day operations, drive around in the car. Of course, you have to be vigilant because you have certain people that don't like cops, right? So because we've had cops that was just sitting at a stoplight getting shot. So we have to be vigilant. We have to see what's going on and be aware of who is around us, and like how we're being watched or observed. Um, Now, some cops, as we're sitting there at a light, we would be like, oh, look at that car, and just run the license plate, because you never know what cars are stolen. Or we say cold plated, which means somebody stole the license plate or just switch license plates to another vehicle, because no average person is thinking that. Like, oh, okay, you see a Mercedes, but that license plate belongs to a truck. Or like you see a Mercedes sedan, but I know that license plate belongs to a truck or SUV because of how the license plate is written. Unless it's customized, license plates for trucks and SUVs are different than sedans. There's a format to it, and we know it. So we're looking at that stuff. So automatically, if we see a sedan with a pickup truck license plate, we know something's wrong. So we run it and we figure it out. And that's how we find stolen vehicles all the time. We just run plates, randomly sit at a light. There have been stolen vehicles, cops in the Jack in the Box drive through, just running plates. Oh, the vehicle's stolen right in front of me. Huh. What do you do? So yeah, you just never know what you're going to run into day to day.
Wow. Man, that's such an interesting thing because again, without having formalized training and without having to actually look at things with a great deal of specificity, there's just the average person like me is looking at things at surface level, and I'm old enough to understand that surface level thinking typically does not put you in a position to have a good understanding of something. And so I've been in and out of traffic and I see cars, police cruisers and police SUVs go by, and I've seen police cruisers get behind me momentarily and then go ahead and just switch lanes and just take off. And something that I've always kind of wondered, that's kind of pertaining to this but not, is do so have you are is it only highway patrol that patrols the highways, or do you as a police officer, do you jump on and jump off of highways at all?
So that's a misconception that people have. And I've been in situations where I've pulled people over on a highway and they'll be like, what are you doing? You're not highway patrol. Like, it doesn't work that way. So, so to clarify a couple things, so highway patrol, they patrol California. They patrol California. They can do whatever they want. They patrol California, and their title says California Highway Patrol. Now, their main job is to handle anything on the highways, but you'll have some highway patrol officers who are very motivated. They'll get off the highways and go patrol the streets and go wherever they want. They're California Highway Patrol. Now, for the other police officers, so we are supposed to stay within our city limits. So if there's a freeway in our city limits and we see something that we want to pull somebody over the freeway for speeding, we can do that. But our main priority is just handling our service area. We don't have service areas on the freeway. But if we want to go pull somebody on the freeway because they're speeding or they're weaving in and out of traffic, driving erratically, then we can do that. Like, we're still police officers. Now, if we pull somebody over in a different county, one, we have to have a very good reason to do that. And then we just have to alert that other county where we're at. And they would probably come take it. But, it's just a common courtesy thing. But
Okay.
there's no, oh, you're a city cop, you can't get on the freeway, and highway patrol, you can't pull me over on the regular surface streets. Oh no, there's none of that.
Okay. Thanks. All right, so I just have two more little scenarios I want to run by you, because again I want to honor your time, and I think this is probably the most important one that I think you'll be able to shed some real light and insight into. Let's talk about police to civilian contact, because that seems to be the thing that either can be over dramatized and amplified on social media, or it can be something that the average person that considers themselves to be a constitutionalist and they know their rights, they know their, the Fourth Amendment and illegal search and seizure, you know, sideshow lawyers, as I call them. I've seen them on not just TV shows, but in real life, telling cops what they can and cannot do. When a cop approaches a citizen, I want you to kind of share for everyone that's listening, what are the parameters in which that interaction can take place if there's not like a absolute solid, I don't want to say suspicion, solid belief that this person is of danger to themselves or something else. Meaning, when cops approach and they start asking questions before there's a decision made for detention or arrest, what is it that the average citizen is supposed to do that falls in line with compliance? Because the reason I'm asking you this, and I just want to make sure that everyone listening is clear, I've been on my local police department websites and they do have their code of conduct and all that stuff posted. But as I've read through it, because I'm not learned it and studied in how to look at force escalation measures and all these things, I myself don't know what the average citizen can or cannot say to a police officer, or what the minimum criteria for resisting is. Because I looked and I was interested in finding out what the difference between compliance and resistance is. So when you pull up and you engage with citizen X inside of the community that you're servicing, what are some of the things that they must do in order to be in compliance with what you're trying to do in order to take control of the situation? And what are some things that they absolutely cannot do, to include words or things they can't say to police without finding themselves in hot water?
All right. So the big thing is we'll start with, let's say, a traffic stop. All right. And let's go back to your window tint. Um, so let's say I pull somebody over for a window tint. And as soon as I pull them over, they're just letting me have it. Why you pulling me over? Y'all always messing with me. No, I'm gonna give the exact words that people would be saying. You always fucking with me. I just got fucking pulled over the other day for this. Like, I'm gonna file a complaint. What's your name and badge number? Mind you, I haven't said anything yet. I haven't got a single word out yet. I'm just being berated because of the uniform that I'm wearing and the job that I'm trying to perform. So, one thing about me, when I pull somebody over, I always introduce myself and I tell them while why I pulled them over. I don't play the game, the guessing game. Do you know why I pulled you over? That's only in the movies. And if cops are doing that, that's dumb on them. Like, if you pull somebody over, introduce yourself and tell them why you're doing it. Now, when somebody is berating me like that, I let them talk. And I simply say, well, are you done now? Can I actually tell you why I pulled you over? And I will tell them. So people don't get this, but they control the interaction with the police officer. Now, not saying you have to sit there and be like, yes, sir, no, sir. No one is saying do all that. Just have a normal conversation. Like, hey, such and such, I pulled you over because you have window tint. Oh, okay. Some people, like you said, they'll buy a vehicle from a dealership and they'll already have tint off. Like, oh, I bought it like this. Oh, okay, that's fine. But you're still not supposed to have it. Oh, I didn't know that. And depending on how that interaction, if you're an asshole, for lack of better words, or you're being rude and disrespectful to me, I'm going to write you a ticket. And I need your driver's license and insurance. Your registration, do I really need it? No, because I already pulled it up when I ran your plate. I could run it off of that. But a lot of cops ask for it as well, because sometimes you may have expired tags on the vehicle, but you have tags on the way, or you have tags with you, and it may not show in the system sometime. Or you may have just bought a vehicle, and the paperwork might not match. So it just depends on the situation. But if you're rude and disrespectful to a cop, like, how do you think that interaction is going to go? Like, the person is trying to just do their job. Now, like, there are bad apples in every job in all walks of life. Sometimes that police officer may be a bad apple, or you may be dealing with someone who had a bad day, right? He had a stressful day. Like, being a cop is stressful, but that don't mean you take it out on the citizens that you're supposed to be rendering service to or educating them while you're pulling them over, because those are supposed to be for educational purposes. So you just have to control the interaction. Like, I've had interactions where people are cussing me out. I just write them a ticket. Or, like, if they're like getting too amped up, then you could ask them to step out of the vehicle. But you have to have a real reason to do that. You have to have a reason to do that. You can't just make them step out. But if you're asking for their information and they keep saying no, 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 is there a magical number on how many times a person says no? No. But if after the first time you tell me no, you denied me your information, so I haven't properly identified you, then I can take you out of the vehicle. Now, is that going to be smart? Because that's just going to escalate the situation. Like, sometimes cops calls it, and sometimes the individuals cause the escalation of these situations. But most of the and and it could be 50-50. Like, if a cop is asking for your ID, I'm not giving you shit. Like, driving is a privilege if people didn't know that and they sign that, and it's on small print when they get their driver's license and from the DMV. Driving is a privilege, and it can be taken away. So, I mean, just listen to see what the cop has to say and just deal with it later. If you feel like the cop was rude or disrespectful, then you get his name and his badge number. You ask for a supervisor and you deal with it that way. Don't sit there and try to fight with the cop. Because here's another thing that people don't understand. Everybody, they're basically trained police officers. I mean, they have the basic training. Any other training, that's on you. And when I say that, I mean, like, that's why you need to have life experience. So, de-escalation, being in the military, being a leader, um, we deal with a lot of different people from different walks of life. You can't treat everybody the same. Everybody doesn't get the same treatment because people don't act the same. You got some people who are rude, disrespectful. You know who are your go-getters, and you know who's not. So therefore, you have to have that. You have to know when to de-escalate a situation. So, for example, if you have a person in a pickup truck who's just a massive human being, like 6'4", 250, and the cop that pulls him over is 5'8", 130 pounds, well, already right there, there's a huge size advantage, right? Already. So pretty much if that individual wanted to fight the cop, he's probably gonna, for lack of better words, probably gonna beat his ass. Now, that's why you have to know your limits. So therefore, if that cop that's 5'8", knows he's small and know the other person is way bigger than him, maybe you shouldn't be escalating the situation, right? Just be the bigger man or woman, do your job, and let it go because you can do nothing about it. You're going to escalate the situation and force something to happen. Meaning, so like if that guy's like, oh, okay, I'm going to get out of the car and we about to have problems. And now you're going to use that as a reason to use force, but knowing your punches aren't going to do anything to that person. So you're going to go to your baton or your taser, or you might be like, oh, I feared for my life, and you use your gun. Well, then maybe you shouldn't be doing this job. Like, and this is why you have to have life experience. Being 22 or 23-year-olds in this job is not going to cut it. You need somebody with some real life experience, like knows how to handle a situation, know how to talk to people, know when somebody's having a bad day and they're mad, they're berating you, they're disrespecting you. Mind you, they're talking to the uniform because they don't know you. Then you got to take a step back and be like, okay, got it. Have a good day. Don't sit there and mouth off with them. Just write them a ticket and let them go. Let them go. Just let them go. Don't sit there and try to have a pissing match and see who has the bigger balls, for lack of better words. But you shouldn't be doing that. If that's the type of person you are, then you should not be a cop.
Man, that's some real insight, man. And I knew, and I told you offline, I knew being able to sit down and actually talk with someone that actually, you know, puts on a uniform every day and takes a great deal of pride in trying to be of service to your community, you would have a lens and an insight that just the average person that all we do is we're using the eyeball test. Even though most educated people know that the eyes are the least reliable of all the senses. We still just look at what we see, what's fed to us by the media, what's fed to us in movies and sitcoms and other shows, and then what we think we see while we're out, milling out about in general society. But I've always known that there is some a certain level of specificity that has to be present on the other side. And if there's a deviation from that, that just means that that particular person, like you said, they're actually fallible because the sum of their life experiences has not prepared them to be able to handle this particular situation the correct way. And so I'm glad you're able to actually unpack that for us.
Of course, of course. And to clear up another misconception people may have, quotas. So let's talk about that. So there are no such thing as quotas, right? Because quotas are illegal. But there are certain things as like problem areas. They're like, oh, okay, in this area, there's always traffic accidents. Okay. Why? Because they have distracted drivers. Okay. So the city might be like, here's a grant for police officers to work overtime. And all you're going to do is go write distracted driver tickets. That's it. For 10 hours, you're going to go out there and write as many tickets as you can. Now, that's not a quota, that's a problem solving effort, an educational effort to the people in that area to stay off their phones, stop running red lights, stop speeding, and to actually stop at a stop sign, not just going up to it doing the California roll where you slow down and not make a complete stop and just keep going. So it's educational. So that's one thing. And it's a no quotas, but we do have times where it's like, hey, this is another problem area over here. It's a lot of theft or gang violence or stolen vehicles. So we're going to go out here and contact as many people as we can to make sure they're not out here committing crimes.
That makes sense, and that's a great distinction because I think a lot of things kind of get chalked up as myths or as deductions that people make on the outside looking in, or maybe even hear that one cop that's in it for the wrong reasons or has lost to become disenchanted. They lost their moral compass and they do look at it that way. But it's good to hear that, there is very, very methodical and well thought out strategies to try to prevent crime or try to prevent accidents and things of that nature. So this is absolutely eye opening for me and I suspect for anyone else that's listening. So I do want to honor your time. I could sit and pick your brain for another hour, but I understand the assignment. You have a beautiful family to attend to. I know we're getting into the part where dad mode and husband has to kick in, and I thank you for taking the time to sit down with me just to kind of like kick around this conversation and shed some light on a lot of the misconceptions that go along with not just policing but also policing while being black. And so I wanted to make it clear, you've done a lot, you've given a lot of insight that transcends race, transcends gender, transcends ethnicity, and all those other things. But to bring it back full circle to what you began with, there are certain intersectional nuances that take place in law enforcement when you're a cop and you're a black male cop. Right. And so I think that you've done a great job of just kind of like putting out on the table, sharing your experiences and sharing generalities that people, face every single day when they decide that they want to put on one of those shields and become a law enforcement officer. So I absolutely appreciate you for that. I'm indebted um tremendously with you. And like I told you offline, when we catch up face to face again, man, I'm gonna make sure that what I'm saying I show you my appreciation for this great deed you did today, brother.
Now, I appreciate it. It's actually it's an honor and a privilege to be come on here and talk to you, answer any questions that you have. Because it's all about you know educating people, and a lot of people they have their own assumptions. Oh, law enforcement is this, law enforcement is that. I never really thought like that because I was never in any trouble. But once I became a police officer and got into law enforcement, it opened my eyes because now you see the lens from being a law enforcement, being a black person, and being prior military. It's like you get to see the full picture, and it is hard being a cop, but it is even harder being a black cop. And if you want to come in being a leader and speaking up for what you believe in, or even just speaking out, law enforcement will eat you up and spit you out for that. They don't like it. They don't, especially not coming from a person of color. They don't. They don't like it at all. Um, I know you're being conscious of my time, but are you sure there's no more questions? Like one important question that you forgot to ask me? Anything you want to clarify or you want to touch base on?
This actually, serves can serve as a jump off point, man, because there could, this content and this topic, in particular, could serve two or three episodes. And so, I wouldn't be doing it any justice just, coming up with something random. What I am going to do, to be honest, is I'm going to sit back and replay and to dissect all these jewels and all this knowledge that you've actually blessed us with. And, don't be surprised if I reach out again and say, hey, man, I've been looking in the comments or people, gave me some suggestions of things that they wish we would have, had an opportunity to discuss in the first one. So I look at this as an opportunity to build, in an organic way. So, I think everything that I had in mind for you to touch bases on, you've actually, knocked the ball out the park. I appreciate and respect your candidness and your vulnerability and being able to just share your perspective and to give us the real, not to just come on here and do the whole edge of speech and, just look at it and focus on, well, I don't want people to have a certain perception. Like, you're telling your truth, you're telling your experiences. And, I absolutely appreciate that. And I think anyone that listens to this should appreciate that part, brother. So, um, I've got my cup full. My cup is actually running over right now, man. My heart is very happy, and I just want to say this on the way out, man. I look forward to the next time I'm out your way, man, to be able to just tap in, man, and see your beautiful bundle of joy. I know that time is going by, and now I see walk in and all that kind of stuff, full-fledged toddlerism going on in your house. I've seen the pictures of first Halloween and all that great stuff. So I just look forward to seeing you face to face, man, and just being able to share with you, man, my adulation for you, brother.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on here, and I'll be on whenever you need me.
Absolutely. All right, folks. So there you have it. If you done rock with us this far, I guarantee you done got some nuggets or you done got some game that's gonna be able to give you a different way of looking at this topic. Hopefully this has opened up your eyes to the fact that there's just a lot of misconceptions and there's a lot of things that on the outside looking in can look one way. But this brother has, in my opinion, did a great job of taking off the rosy colored glasses and just speaking real. So until the next episode. Beautiful people, I'm signing out. Peace.